G'day and welcome back to the Aussie Sports Show. Today's installment is week 2 out of 24 of the NBA regular season, where I'm joined by Liam in what has been a fascinating, second week with lots and lots of stories to come out of.
Yeah, for sure. Another exciting weekend. To start off with, we'll just touch on Chicago yet again. We touched on them last week, and they're starting 5-1, and they're just looking exciting as ever. DeRozan, he scored 32 the other day. I think his best so far of Chicago this season. He's just looking absolutely elite. Chicago, Lonzo, he's looking exciting. Levine, Caruso, Vucevic, they're all very clicking in well. So, yeah, Chicago, very exciting, starting off at 5-1 to start the season already.
Now, everyone has been wanting it for quite some time, and it's to watch 1990s basketball again. And it's almost back, isn't it? The refs have sort of put their whistle away a fair bit this year. And the Knicks, the Bulls, the Heat, and also Utah are four of the top 6 or 7 teams in the league, which is what they were back in the 90s. So 90s basketball is back in a sense. And it's been really great to watch some of the struggling teams over recent years, such as the Knicks and Bulls, pick up, and also, Heat and Utah. No one can really hate for any specific reasons. So it's also good to see them up there as well.
Now, a bit of a surprise that I've seen come out this year, and that it goes by a name of Ja Morant. He's probably going to be an all-star this year for me so far. He's jumped out the gate. He's averaging nearly 29 points a game, 5 rebounds and 7 assists. But the thing that's jumped out to me is that he's shooting 38% from the 3-point line this year. That's up 8% so far from last year. And he's averaging hitting 2 for 6 a game. He's hitting 52% from the field. And I believe he's leading the league in points in the paint by a guard, mind you. We don't see this very often, that we see a guard leading the league in points in the paint. He's trying to prove himself a point. He's probably should be an all-star. He should have been last year maybe, but no doubt I feel like he should be one this year. If he doesn't this year, I feel like he'll be robbed. But yeah, he's just looking exciting as ever. His bounce is ridiculous. And yeah, I reckon if he can get the Grizzlies going, they can push for a play and maybe even win that and probably make the playoffs. But yeah, Ja Morant is looking absolutely exceptional, and I'm excited to see what he can do throughout the season.
Now we'll touch on a few other teams. The Wizards are looking strong. At the moment, I believe they're 5-1 or 4-2, something like that. And that's a little bit surprising. A lot of people had them potentially eighth, if not like ninth or 10th in the play-in tournament, but they're looking very strong and potentially a playoff team. But the question is, who are they going to knock out? That's the real thing. Who have they got? Dinwiddie's been strong. He's been incredible. Harrell has been absurd for what has been normally a backup center, coming 6th or 7th man off the bench back in LA, but he has been incredible. And the Wizards basketball has actually been quite exciting, which we haven't really said since John Wall had his injury. So, yeah.
Yeah, now we'll touch on to the favorite Aussie at the moment, Josh Giddey. Last week became the second youngest player in NBA history to get 10 assists in the game, behind the king himself, LeBron James. And he's just doing his part for OKC. He's in probably Rookie of the Year race if he can pick up his game a little bit. But yeah, he's doing what he can on what is a struggling OKC. They're going one win from their 6 games so far. So he's probably the favorite player out of all show, behind Patty Mills, obviously. But I just love what he's doing. He's not doing like flashy, but he's just doing his part. He's getting, 7-8 assists a game. He's getting double-digit in points, and he's just trying to make himself a case to show that he has great potential. And if he can pick it up, he's just going to be a great player in the next few years to come for OKC and maybe another team elsewhere. But yeah, he's just looking very, very promising so far.
Now we'll touch on Damian Lillard, who has had a very cold start to the year. He shot 34% from the field and 23% from three. This is not typical Dame numbers. He's down on points as well. 34% from the field isn't something you would normally hear tied to Dame's name. Obviously, he's not the most efficient 3-point shooter. He's not, Steph Curry, who shoots 45% from three. 40% is probably around where Dame is normally at. And we've seen him. He's got range. He pulls up from the logo, but he hasn't done probably any of that so far this year. And evidently so, the Blazers are struggling, and they're probably not even going to make the play-in at the moment, the way they're traveling. So if Dame can pick up his game, for sure, they'll make it. But he is off to a very rough start.
Another team off to a rough start is that Phoenix Suns are off to a slow start after their finals run last year. And Chris Paul is probably behind that. He's only averaging the 12 points, a bit down from last year, where he's averaging the 10 assists. But they're just looking pretty slow. We expected them to jump out the gates, and they said they wanted to make another finals push. And I can't believe they're sitting at 2 and 3, hanging in on 10th spot. So they're going to need to pick up their game if they want to make another finals run. But yeah, they've started off very slow, and I hope they can pick up their game, because otherwise they're struggling to make the playoffs if they play in at the moment. So Chris Paul needs to get his averages up, and the whole team just needs to get clicking in order to get their season back on track, you'd think.
Now on to the Los Angeles Clippers. Are they even going to make the playoffs? It's a question we really have to ask. They're not clicking as a team like they have. Obviously, Kawhi's out. It's a question of how long he's going to be out for. That's the real problem. Paul George has been incredible so far, averaging the 27 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists on 37% from three. But can you see them making the playoffs?
If they keep up the way they're playing right now, no, I don't. As you said, PG, he's been exceptional, but he can't do everything. They need to get clicking as a team, get their chemistry going. And again, if they need to have a good playoff seed if they're getting Kawhi back, so they can go deep with Kawhi. Because who knows, he might even be back for the first round, and they might get first round and then they're out. So they need to get a good seed and then play a team lower down in the conference, and then hopefully they can get clicking. Yeah.
So Paul George has pretty much carried them. He's had I think 3 40-point games off the top of my head, including 41-10 against Memphis and 42-8 in the last week or so. But he can't do it all by himself. He needs that support. And I really don't think the Clippers have enough support without Kawhi. And I can't see them making the playoffs.
We'll now move on to something that I find a little bit peculiar. James Harden, we all know he started complaining about the new new foul rule where you can't, draw a foul that way. And yet, against the Pacers the other day, he still managed to shoot 19 free throws, making 16 of them. And for me, I just found that very, very strange, because before that he was shooting 5 free throws max a game, and then all of a sudden he jumps out and he shoots 19. And I was just a little bit confused by it. If the ref would know they were doing something, but again, I just don't know. Hopefully that doesn't stick, and hopefully it just shows how much Harden relies on free throws to score. Now, I'm not a Harden hater, but it just shows that how much he relies on free throws to score, because 16 of those 29 points he scored against Indiana the other day were from the foul line. So it's just very confusing for me. It's very, very inconsistent, this rule, I feel like, that the NBA has brought in this year.
Now on to another rookie. We touched on Josh Giddey, but this man is a long way from OKC. He's up in Toronto. Scotty Barnes is the name. He is looking incredible. I remember draft night. Toronto fans weren't too happy that he was drafted so high at pick 4 or something, I believe. he's averaging the 18 and 8. So I think Toronto found the right pick. He was originally ranked about number 2, I think, coming out of high school, but had a bit of a rough year after that. But he's looking like one of the best picks of the draft so far. As I said, I think Toronto really found their man, and they have a lot to be excited for up north.
Now move on to a bit of today's stats. The Pacers took on the Spurs and they had 78 points at the half, and that's something we don't see, especially from Indiana. I think they're sitting at 1-6, and they had, I think, scored 113 to 88, start off the last. There, I don't know how it's happened, but Sabonis has 24 and 13, Holiday 7 off the bench. All their starters are in double digits. I just found that surprising from Indiana. They're not the greatest. They're a bit slow, sitting last in the East at the moment. But yeah, I just found that I didn't expect that at all to see when I walked onto the NBA app this morning, to see that they had 78 points at the half. That's something you don't see every day.
Not at all. Now on to a bit of an old face, potentially retiring this year, if not most likely, definitely next year. Camelo Anthony is leading the league in catch and shoot threes with 20 so far. And it's a bit different to what we're used to, isn't it? He was more of a shot creator in his New York time, at least, and his Denver time for that matter. But he's leading the league, and that's great to see. Obviously, not many people want the Lakers to succeed this year, but everyone roots for Camelo Anthony, don't we? So to see him doing something successful, and he's been pretty decent as well. I think he's averaging about the 12 or 14 points a game, something around that. So yeah, he's doing his bits for the Lakers, which is what we love to see.
And lastly, the last news we saw come out today, that Lou Williams said that he's most likely going to retire come season's end. He's kind of dropped off the last couple of years since he won, I think, those back-to-back Six Man of the Year. But he's been on 6 different teams, and over his career he's averaged 14, 2 and 3. His best years for him, 23, 2 and 5. He's just been in and around there. On his Clippers days when he came off the bench, he was probably the best 6-man in the league. And then I think he got traded to Atlanta. I think he's just stayed there ever since. So I feel like at the age of 35, it's time to, him to go. Hasn't really done much the last couple of years. And yeah, I feel like time's right for Will. Never had anything against him. He's been very good, especially when he's, as I say, Clippers. I think he scored 50 off the bench or something like that. And yeah, he's just as well being exceptional. So yeah, well done on a great career, Will Williams.
Very well said. And on that note, I think that wraps up today's episode. So join us next week for more NBA content. Otherwise, take a look on the channel tomorrow being Wednesday for our cricket video and Friday for our AFL video. And we will catch you then.
See ya.